Alright, so this is a bit of interesting news. So last night we obviously had their Chisora versus Ottavillian. It was a decent card to fight the main event. Well, Chisora did what he needed to do. It was alright. We obviously have Frank Warren tomorrow. He is doing a press conference in Manchester. Basically what he's going to do there is he's going to be talking about upcoming fights that are going to be on, well, they're going to be on the zone. So they won't be in the month of March. They'll be all April onwards. Hearing reports, rumours of Lee Wood versus Anthony Kakache. We're hearing, obviously Dylan White, Joe Joyce, etc., etc. So that's all well and good. So it's going to be a busy day tomorrow, I'm sure, for Frank Warren, people like myself doing videos on it and stuff like that. So that's going to be interesting. But one of the key things that we talk about was Anthony Yarde and his trainer, longtime trainer manager Tunde Ajayi, were sat ringside with Frank Warren. Now, obviously, we know the last time Anthony Yarde fought on a Queensberry show, I think it's almost a year to this day that he last fought on a Queensberry show. Obviously, he'd been promoted for I think pretty much all of his career, apart from maybe one or two fights at the start, very, very start, by Frank Warren. And this split dispute, more so is what the word it was, contract dispute, it really did seem to come in a left field, and it really did strike me as very bizarre, because Frank Warren, in my opinion, has done a very, very good job for Anthony Yarde. Anthony Yarde was able to get 2 world title shots, as mandatory, mind you, without ever having to fight an eliminator. Never had to fight a final eliminator for any of those shots, and was able to get those shots beating absolute scrubs. Honestly, it was painful that they matched Anthony Yarde so carefully, and it's a real damning indictment that he was able to get mandatory shots beating the likes of, what was his name, Travis Rivas or something like that, was before he fought Kovalev. Absolutely crazy. But it was also a big shock because at this time, which we're talking about April last year, Frank Warren was in good he still is in good. Like, he's the main guy with Turki Al-Sheikh and the Saudis. In fact, when you see a show and it has multiple promoters on it, Frank Warren is he's the figurehead, he's the main guy. You even look at I'm pretty sure the American show, the American Riyadh show that had Terence Crawford on it last year, I don't think there was one Queensberry fighter on that card, but I distinctly remember the Queensberry logo in the ring. So, he is big. He's big in with the Saudis. He's doing great things. He's obviously had the 5v5, etc., etc. And you would think someone like Anthony Yarde, who is, look, he's not the star. Certainly, I think he thinks he is, and Tunde Ajayi certainly thinks he is. But nevertheless, he is still a name. Certainly in British boxing. As I said, he's not a massive name, but he's a name nonetheless. And he was liked by Frank Warren. Frank Warren did an awful lot for him. So you would have thought, from the outside looking in, that this would have been great news for Anthony Yarde. It'll make this Joshua Buatsi fight more likely. It might happen on a UK show, might happen on a Riyadh show. If it doesn't happen, you've got the Matchroom Queensberry, light heavyweight division, so you can go in there. You can fight Joshua Buatsi, whoever like that, as the winner, follow on from that. So you knew, okay, from the outside looking at it, this is a good thing. You want big paydays, well, here you go. I mean, there's your ticket. You impress on those shows and Turkey takes a liking to you. He likes your style. Again, sky's the limit. So for them to, say we're in a dispute and we're free to do this, we're free, you're looking and you're thinking, what? Why would you, that doesn't make any sense. And, he has his comeback fight. Forgive me, I can't remember who he fought in that fight in the Copper Box back in October. And you're on a Sky show, co-main event in an Adam Azim show in the Copper Box Arena in East London. And you've contemporaries who are with Queensberry, like Willie Hutchinson, who are fighting in Riyadh and then fighting in Wembley Stadium. I mean, it's a big difference between what you're doing. And we're no closer to the Joshua Buatsi fight. He's fought Willie Hutchinson, now he's fighting Callum Smith. So you're looking at this from the outside looking in, you're thinking, what are you doing? This is just, what are you actually doing? What are you hoping to achieve by doing this? Because you're pretty much out in the wilderness now in the light heavyweight division. All the big light heavyweight fights, certainly domestic fights, even world level, Bivol Beterbiev, they're all going to be handled by the Saudis. Your let's say the promoter you're having a dispute with, he is the main guy. So if he takes a dislike to you, yeah, try and get on those shows and see what happens. Well, seeing him with Frank Warren was then interviewed by the Ring magazine, and he said, and I quote, he'll be fighting under the Queensberry banner That is what Frank Warren was asked about his relationship with Anthony Yarde. So it would appear that hell is now since frozen over. Now, two things come to mind with this one. Has the dispute, and I'm going to call it that, has that gone to court and have they ruled in Frank Warren's favour? Again, I'm asking the question, I'm not saying that was actually what happened. Was that the case? Or did Anthony Yarde and more so Tunde Ajayi have to take a massive L? And, you know, I can imagine Anthony Yarde when he met up with Frank Warren. So you still want that dispute? No, sir, I'm sorry. An older boy told me to do it. Probably, you know, something like that. Because at the end of the day, what's Anthony Yarde going to do? What's he going to do? So he's on one of these ring shows, right? He's fighting Lyndon Arthur in a fight none of us want. But he's on that Ring Magazine show. And then what? How is he going to get on one of those Riyadh shows without Frank Warren or without someone like that backing him? If he's going to try and be independent and, you know, go to the highest bidder, well, none of them are really going to bid for him because they're, well, I mean, God only knows the type of money Tunde Ajayi is looking for on behalf of Anthony Yarde, which none of them would pay, because how are they going to generate that? Anthony Yarde, the biggest arena he's fought in as a headline act is the OVO Arena over in Wembley. It's the biggest. And I don't even know if it was fully capacity. It was a full capacity. It's about 13,000. So how are you going to demand X amount of money if promoters are more willing to just say, oh, no, I'll work with the Saudis and I'll only work with you for a fight, so I'm not going to, you know, stick my neck out and do X, Y, and Z. So I reckon they've had to swallow their pride, look at this situation as a whole and say, do you know what? We effed up. We effed up. We should never have got into this dispute. It happened at a time when they probably thought they will. I'm not really suggesting this is really Anthony Yarde's fault necessarily, in a sense of, yeah, he was compliant. He was, you know, saying, oh, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. But I reckon it was people behind the scenes, we all know who I'm alluding to, who were, you know, basically pulling his strings, so to speak. And as far as I'm concerned, making him make decisions that were not in his best interest. It might have been in some people in his team's best interest, but not in Anthony Yarde's best interest. And I think Anthony Yarde has lost, essentially he's lost a year of his career, but it may as well have been 2 years, because he hasn't had a meaningful fight in 2 years now. He basically lost a year of his career where he could have been fighting the likes of, we could have already had the Boazzi fight. He could have been in there with Craig Richards. He could be going to Riyadh in a fortnight's time to fight Callum Smith instead of Joshua Boazzi. He could have made absolute multi-million pound pays, because I say $1 million there, but no, £1 million paydays. And now he's not. And I reckon that his team had to swallow their pride, go to Frank and say, we are really, really sorry. And Frank Warren is what... Look, Frank Warren is a very cutthroat businessman when it comes to fighters. You know, he will put fighters in the deep end. He'll have no problem, you know, terminate. He'll have no problem doing other things as well. But I suspect Frank Warren is the type of guy, in fact, he definitely is, who knows what's best for business. And he's worked with Anthony Yarde for pretty much the whole of his career. And I'm sure Frank Warren just saw this as a bit of a, do you know what, you made an F up, right, let's get back working together. I do truthfully think that Team Yarde really did think they could do a Canelo. And, you know, go and, you know, loan themselves out. Think, I'm going to fight on Boxer, I'm going to fight on Matchroom and this, that and the other. And then they all start working with the Saudis. And it's like, okay, all roads now basically lead to Frank Warren. It's as simple as that. Bad decisions by Anthony Yarde in the past, they seem to have been rectified now. I was worried because, you know, at the end of the day, he's nearly 34 years old. So, you know, ticking time bomb. You don't have, you're not going to have much. You probably got another 2 good years left in you. And that's it. You want to make the most of them. You want to make the most of them. You want to make the most money. You're not going to do that by just, you know, hoping and praying. And now this means Frank Warren is now in with the Ring Magazine show, which is happening on April 26th as well. So, yeah. A lot of things going Frank Warren's way. Anthony Yarde now back with Queensberry, fighting under the Queensberry banner. He will have Frank Warren in his corner for this next fight. And assuming he wins, which I'm expecting him to, you would imagine that the likely scenario following on from that, because the winner of Joshua Boazzi, Callum Smith, is not going to get an immediate crack at Bivol Beterbiev. Dave Benavidez is next in line. He's first in the queue. Well, why not have the winner of Lyndon Arthur versus Anthony Yarde fight the winner of Joshua Boazzi versus Callum Smith? Easy matchmaking, simple as. And I'd like to see it, quite frankly. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments section below. Frank Warren, Anthony Yarde back working together. Do you think that it went to court and Frank Warren, won it? Do you think, I'm not saying it did, or do you think it's more simple that Team Yarde realised, we effed up, sorry Frank, simple as? That's what I think it is. Let me know your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And until next time, people, peace.